Arabelle had dreamed of Korea for as long as she could remember. But it wasn't just the pretty scenery or the K-dramas. It was the idea of belonging somewhere she felt understood, somewhere her heart had always longed for. Her room wasn't just decorated with BTS posters and Crash Landing on You quotes. It was a shrine to a future she wasn't sure would ever come. She stood in front of the mirror, staring at the sticky notes of Hangul phrases she'd written. Words she had practiced every morning before work, believing that one day they'd lead her to a life she had only dared to dream of. Her friends called it obsession. She called it passion. So when she saw a post on Instagram, opportunity for foreign coders to live and work in Seoul, she applied without thinking. It was a joke. A fantasy. But 1 month later, while watching her favourite K-drama with tears in her eyes and a bowl of noodles in hand, a pop-up message nearly made her spill the entire thing on her lap. Congratulations, Arabelle. You've been selected to join Seoul Tech Exchange. Flight details attached. She screamed, she danced, she cried. 1 week later, Arabelle stepped off the plane at Incheon International Airport, eyes wide, heart racing and wearing her warmest jacket. Her apartment in Mapogu was small but perfect. The floor even heated up. She took it all in, the clean air, the neon lights, the smell of roasted chestnuts. The next morning, she wore her nicest blouse, tucked in nervously at the waist, and practiced her greeting in Korean. 안녕하세요. 제 이름은 아라벨입니다. She'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. She entered the glass-walled office of Park Industries, and the silence was deafening. Heads turned, whispers passed, not hostile, just curious. Was it her skin, her braids, or just the fact that no one expected an African girl here? She smiled anyway. It was her dream, and she would own it. A man approached. Slick hair, black suit, round glasses. Hello, I'm Kim Shik, secretary to the CEO. He wants to see you. The CEO? On the first day? Her heart thumped. She adjusted her blazer and followed. The office door opened, and there he was, tall, impossibly handsome, cold eyes, sharp jaw. Arabelle's breath caught. Is he even human? She wondered, then instantly shook the thought. Not why you're here, girl. Have a seat, he said flatly. She sat. I'm Mr. Park. You'll be working under my supervision. Kim Shik will walk you through everything. No smile, no warmth. But, oddly, something in his eyes lingered on her. She couldn't place it. The days passed quickly. Arabelle adapted, learned fast, and found the courage to speak up. The office staff warmed up to her. Some even helped her with her Korean. When they organised a welcome party, Arabelle laughed so hard she forgot she was thousands of miles from home. Mr. Park didn't attend. He never did. He was perfect, disciplined, distant. Until the day everything changed. It was 6 months later. The woman walked in like a storm, red heels, flawless skin, dripping confidence. Heads turned again. But this time not because of Arabelle. That's Bora, Yuna whispered beside her. Mr. Park's ex, she left him 3 years ago, crushed him. Arabelle's eyes followed the woman who walked with so much confidence, like she still owned the building. Her makeup was flawless, her designer bag swayed with each calculated step, and her eyes were locked straight ahead, toward the CEO's office. She left him? Arabelle asked softly. Yeah, they were almost married. But she chose a job in New York over him. It broke him. He hasn't been the same since. Just then the glass door to Mr. Park's office swung open, and Bora disappeared inside. Arabelle couldn't stop watching. Why now? Why is she back? Her heart pounded unexpectedly. She didn't even know why it bothered her so much. Maybe because she had grown to admire Mr. Park, not just for his looks, but for his work ethic, his quiet strength, the way he never spoke more than necessary but always said the right thing. She didn't know what came over her. She picked up a random file, just paper, nothing urgent. Her legs just started moving on their own. Now, here she was, standing outside his office. She hadn't planned to eavesdrop truly, but the voices were clear enough. I said... I'm sorry, Bora said sharply. Are you really still mad at me? There was silence. You begged me not to leave, Mr. Park finally said. I asked you to marry me. You walked away like it meant nothing. And now I'm back, she replied, almost like a challenge. I want to fix things. Just then the door cracked open slightly. Arabelle froze, but Mr. Park's voice called, "Come in." She stepped inside slowly, holding a file in her hands. You asked for these reports, she said, trying to steady her voice. Bora turned to her sharply, clearly annoyed at the interruption. You can leave, she snapped. Arabelle lowered her head, turned to go, but Mr. Park's voice stopped her. Stay. She blinked, slowly turned around, then, in one motion, as if something had taken over him, Mr. Park crossed the floor, reached for her hand, and kissed her. It wasn't long, but it was firm and intentional. Arabelle's breath caught in her throat. Bora stood in stunned silence. Then Mr. Park turned to Bora, voice calm but ice-cold. She's my girlfriend now. Bora's eyes burned, but she said nothing. She simply grabbed her bag and stormed out, her heels clacking like gunshots across the floor. When the door shut, Arabelle stepped back. Why would you do that? She asked, voice shaking. Mr. Park's eyes narrowed slightly. You shouldn't be sticking your nose into things that aren't your business, he said, his tone dismissive. You've already gotten what you deserve, and as for what happened, nothing happened. Do you understand? His words were sharp, cold even, as if the whole situation was beneath him. Arabelle's eyes flared with confusion and anger. Nothing happened? Was that how Mr. Park saw it? A random kiss? A meaningless act? Just brushed off as though it didn't matter at all? She was furious, and it showed in the way her voice trembled. Is that how you do things here in Korea? Kiss a random girl and then tell her it was nothing? She snapped, her chest heaving with the weight of her emotions. Without waiting for his response, she spun on her heels and stormed out of his office, her anger bubbling over. As the door clicked shut behind her, Mr. Park remained motionless in his chair. His heart was racing, faster than he would have liked to admit. He had always been in control, always composed, yet that kiss. It shouldn't have meant anything, it was just a kiss. But even as he told himself that, something inside of him didn't agree. The memory of her lips on his lingered, an uncomfortable weight in his chest. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the feeling. No, he couldn't let it affect him. It was nothing, just a kiss. From that day on, things were awkward between them. Arabelle avoided his gaze, never looking him in the eye. And Mr. Park? He couldn't help but notice her every time they crossed paths. He tried to convince himself that it was just the lingering tension from the kiss, but deep down he knew something had shifted. It wasn't just about the kiss anymore. What was it? A few days later, Arabelle stayed late in the office, determined to finish a project that had a tight deadline. The office was eerily quiet. Everyone else had left. She let out a frustrated sigh as she looked at her screen, her eyes burning from exhaustion. She didn't notice Mr. Park standing in the doorway, silently watching her. When she finally stood up from her desk, muttering curses under her breath, she froze in place. Mr. Park was standing there, his gaze soft yet intense, an unreadable expression on his face. She quickly straightened, her voice slightly shaky. Mr. Park, she greeted him, forcing a polite smile, though the tension was thick in the air. He stepped into the office, his eyes still fixed on her. Arabelle, he began, his voice surprisingly gentle. I owe you an apology. For what I said earlier, and for what happened between us. It wasn't right. The weight of his words hit her, and for the first time she saw something different in his eyes. Genuine remorse. She blinked, trying to process his apology. It's okay, she said, her voice softer than she intended. I just didn't know how to take it. Mr. Park nodded slowly. I shouldn't have dismissed it like it was nothing. I should have been more respectful. And I apologize for making you feel like that. There was a pause, a fragile silence hanging between them, But for the first time in days, Arabelle felt the tension lift just a little. She gave a small nod. It's fine. But even as she said the words, she knew it wasn't just fine. Something had changed between them. What, exactly? She wasn't sure. But it wasn't fine. A few days later, Mr. Park received an invitation to the Royal Circle banquet, an exclusive event where the city's elite would gather. He was required to bring a partner, and naturally, Bora texted him, asking if they could attend together. In her message, she made it clear. She would never go with Arabelle, the African girl, was a mere afterthought. Mr. Park didn't even flinch as he rejected Bora's invitation. Not this time. Later that day, he called Arabelle to his office. When she stepped inside, she was unsure what to expect. "Arabelle," Mr. Park began, his tone serious, yet with an odd softness to it. "I have an offer for you. I need a partner for the banquet. If you're interested, I'd like you to come with me." Arabelle raised an eyebrow. "Why me?" He looked at her, his eyes intense. "Because I need someone who can hold their own, who isn't intimidated by the spotlight. I'll pay you well." She hesitated, uncertainty creeping in. The offer was tempting, an opportunity to meet some of Korea's most influential figures. And though she wasn't sure about the terms, she felt something stirring inside her. "All right," she said, surprising herself. "I'll do it." The weekend arrived faster than Arabelle had anticipated. She stood in front of her mirror, her reflection a stark contrast to the woman she had been just a few weeks ago. Today, she wasn't just Arabelle, the office worker. Today, she was the woman beside Mr. Park. And she had to look the part. She adjusted the sleek black dress, the fabric hugging her curves just right. The delicate heels clicked against the marble floor as she made her way out of her apartment, the weight of the evening pressing down on her. She hadn't fully processed what she was doing yet. Was this really happening? Was she really going to attend the Royal Circle banquet as Mr. Park's partner? Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb. As she stepped through the front doors of her building, she saw him. Mr. Park, standing beside the car, dressed immaculately in a dark tailored suit. His eyes lifted the moment he saw her. For a moment he said nothing, just looked. Then, softly, he murmured, "You look beautiful." Her heart skipped a beat. The words were simple, but they carried an unfamiliar warmth, something she hadn't expected from a man who had been nothing but cold and distant since the kiss. She blinked, surprised, then gave a small nod. "Thanks." He held out his arm. Without a word, she slipped her hand through it. Arm in arm, they walked into the night. When they arrived at the venue, they were greeted by a sea of flashing cameras and murmurs of excitement. The Royal Circle banquet was notorious for being one of the most exclusive gatherings of the year. And tonight, all eyes were on Mr. Park as he strode confidently through the entrance, Arabelle by his side. She felt the weight of everyone's gaze upon her, but this time it didn't make her want to shrink away. Instead, she stood tall, determined not to let anyone see the nerve swirling in her stomach. As they entered the ballroom, she could feel the whispers follow them. She wasn't surprised. Who was the black girl with Mr. Park? The questions were silent but palpable. She could sense their judgment, their curiosity, but as the night wore on, she began to tune them out. She had something bigger to focus on. The way Mr. Park's presence seemed to command the room, the way people leaned in when he spoke. And then there was the way his eyes would occasionally flicker to her, as if he was reminding himself she was there. She caught his gaze once, and he smiled, genuinely. For the first time he looked at her like she wasn't just his hired partner for the evening. His smile made something stir deep within her. Was this attraction, or was she just caught up in the moment? After a few hours of mingling and small talk, Mr. Park was called to the stage to give his speech. Arabelle stood to the side, her nerves bubbling back to the surface. She had no idea why she was so nervous. This wasn't her event. But as Mr. Park delivered his speech, she couldn't help but feel proud. There was something so magnetic about him, so captivating. The moment he finished, his eyes immediately sought hers in the crowd. She gave him a small, encouraging smile, and that was enough to make him return to her side. That was when the storm came. Bora, dressed in a sleek white gown, stepped forward from the crowd, her heels clicking loudly on the floor as she approached. "Well, well," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's hear from Mr. Park's girlfriend too, shall we?" The room fell silent. Arabelle's stomach twisted as Bora's words rang out, and for the first time that night, she felt the weight of every single eye in the room. The murmur of the crowd grew louder, and she could almost feel the heat of their stares burning into her. Mr. Park's expression hardened instantly. His grip on her arm tightened and he leaned in close. "Bora," he growled under his breath, barely able to contain his anger. "Can you just stop?" But Bora wasn't done. "I'm sure she'll embarrass herself, just like everyone expects," she taunted, her smile wide and cruel. "What do you think, Mr. Do you really think you can make her look good in front of all these people?" Arabelle felt the sting of Bora's words, but instead of shrinking back, she lifted her chin. She wasn't going to let Bora tear her down. This wasn't about Bora. This was about proving to herself that she belonged here. "I'll show you," Arabelle muttered under her breath. As she turned to walk toward the stage, Mr. Park instinctively reached out, grabbing her arm gently but firmly. His eyes searched hers, concern flickering in them. "Arabelle, don't! You don't have to—" he started, his voice low and urgent, clearly worried she might embarrass herself or be overwhelmed. But she shook him off gently, her expression calm but resolute. "I do," she said. Before he could stop her again, she took a deep breath and walked up to the microphone. The entire room held its breath. She could feel the pressure mounting with each step she took, but then she did something unexpected. She started in Korean. Her voice was clear, steady, and it carried effortlessly through the room. "Good evening," she said in fluent Korean, her accent barely noticeable. She was proud of herself. This was her moment to show that she was more than just a pretty face. As she spoke, explaining the vision behind the evening's event and the importance of their shared success, she noticed people were actually paying attention. She was no longer the outsider in the room. When she finished, the room erupted into applause. People came up to congratulate her, praising her poise, her eloquence, her presence. One man even said to Mr. Park, "You've got yourself a gem. She's beautiful and confident." Mr. Park, too, was stunned. He had never expected this from her. He hadn't realized how much she was capable of until tonight. Before he knew it, he had pulled her into a tight embrace, unable to stop himself. The crowd, the tension, everything seemed to disappear. The only thing that mattered in that moment was the woman in his arms. Bora, standing off to the side, looked absolutely furious. Her eyes burned with jealousy as she watched them. She couldn't tear her gaze away as Arabelle smiled, unbothered, and wrapped her arms around Mr. Park. But as they pulled apart, Arabelle noticed something. The air between them had shifted. And it wasn't just the crowd's reaction. It was him, Mr. Park. The way he looked at her now was different. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had just begun to change between them. The banquet was over, but its effects lingered like perfume in the air. Soft, intoxicating, and impossible to forget. The ride home was silent. Arabelle sat beside Mr. Park in the back of the black car, the city lights flickering across her face. He hadn't said a word since she stepped off that stage, since she silenced the entire room with her flawless Korean and composed presence. But she could feel his gaze on her, curious, stunned, admiring. When they reached her apartment, he stepped out first and opened the door for her. "Arabelle," he said softly, almost like he was testing the weight of her name now. She looked up at him, expecting another silence. Instead, he cleared his throat and added, "You were incredible tonight." "Thank you," she replied, unsure of what to say. There was a strange tension between them, like something had cracked open, but neither of them dared to peek inside just yet. He hesitated, glancing up at her building. "Do you want to maybe have a drink to celebrate?" Her brows lifted slightly. Was this the same man who barely acknowledged her at work just weeks ago? "Sure," she said, her voice quiet but steady. They ended up in a quiet rooftop bar not far from her place. The city stretched out beneath them like a painting. Mr. Park loosened his tie, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone. It was the most relaxed she had ever seen him. "I didn't think you'd actually go up there," he admitted after their drinks arrived. "I know," she said, a small smile playing at her lips. "That's why I did," he chuckled, a real laugh this time. "Not forced, not formal. You like proving people wrong." "Only the ones who underestimate me," she replied, taking a sip of her drink. There was a long pause. The breeze rustled her curls gently, and he leaned forward, his voice suddenly more serious. "I didn't mean to underestimate you, Arabelle. I didn't know you." She met his eyes. "You still don't." His smile faded, replaced by a look of genuine reflection. "I'd like to," he said quietly. Just as the moment thickened between them, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. The glow of Bora's name lit up the screen. He declined the call, but Arabelle had seen it. "You don't have to pretend with me," she said, standing up, trying to mask the sudden cold in her chest. "I know where I stand." "Arabelle, wait." He stood too, his voice strained. She turned to face him. "I wasn't supposed to matter, I get that. But tonight changed something, and I don't know if you're ready for that." Then she walked away, her silhouette fading into the elevator light, leaving Mr. Park alone under the stars, with a silence far heavier than before. The aftershock of the banquet lingered in the office like a whisper no one dared speak out loud. Arabelle walked through the corridor, chin lifted, headphones in, acting unfazed. But she could still feel the stares. The questions, the assumptions. She gave a speech, in Korean. Did you see Mr. Park's hand on her back? No one had the courage to ask her directly, but she knew the rumours were spreading fast. Still, what surprised everyone the most wasn't Arabelle. It was Mr. Park. He was unusually quiet after the banquet, colder than usual, even to Bora. Bora had stormed out of the ballroom that night without another word, her pride bruised, her ego shattered. She had expected Mr. Park to clarify the situation, to distance himself from Arabelle publicly. But he didn't. Not at the banquet, not the next day, not at all. Instead, he said nothing. And that silence spoke volumes. Bora tried to corner him once in the parking lot, heels clacking as she matched his pace. "Is this some game, Park?" she spat. "You bring her to the banquet, let her take the stage like she belongs." He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Be careful with your words. She's not even—" "I never said she wasn't." Bora froze. The message was clear. Mr. Park wasn't going to deny Arabelle, and that single choice was enough to set the entire office ablaze with quiet speculation. Meanwhile, Arabelle kept her head down. She had no idea what was going on in Mr. Park's mind. He hadn't spoken to her properly since that night, and she wasn't bold enough to bring it up. She told herself it was better that way. What happened was just a one-night illusion, a fleeting moment, that's all. But her heart wasn't so easily convinced. One morning, as she stepped into the elevator, the doors began to close, only to open again. "Mr. Park." Their eyes met. He gave a curt nod. "Good morning." "Good morning," she replied quietly, shifting her bag. The air was thick, awkward. Then he cleared his throat. "About that night." She stiffened. "I just wanted to say, you handled everything well." That was it. No explanation, no confession, just a compliment. And yet, her heart betrayed her, fluttering wildly against her chest. As the elevator doors opened to their floor, he waited for her to step out first. But as she passed, she could feel his eyes lingering on her just a little too long. Outside, the rumours swirled. Some expected a scandal, others waited for a photo to leak. But no picture came, no official statement. No trending hashtag. And that silence, that made the mystery even louder. By the end of the week, Arabelle overheard someone whisper in the break room, "If you ask me, the CEO's fallen for her. That's why he's not saying anything. He doesn't want to deny it." She pretended not to hear. But her chest ached with something she couldn't explain. Not yet. Not until he said it himself. The atmosphere in the office had subtly shifted. People noticed it. Mr. Park, once the elusive CEO who barely stepped out of his glass office, now occasionally joined team lunches, lingered in meetings longer than necessary, and, most surprisingly, attended company outings. No one said it aloud, but everyone exchanged curious glances. Arabelle remained oblivious. She thought maybe the company was working on new PR strategies, or perhaps Mr. Park had simply changed. Either way, she didn't give it much thought. She had work to do, clients to manage, and a new level of confidence after the banquet. What she didn't know was that Mr. Park had changed. For her. He watched her from afar, the way she solved problems with empathy, the calm in her voice when clients raised concerns, how she always had an idea to improve a failing presentation. She had become more than just impressive. She was unforgettable. One Friday evening, the team gathered at a rooftop bar for a celebration. A successful quarter wrapped, thanks in part to a deal Arabelle had closed. Laughter echoed through the night air, glasses clinked, and everyone was a little more relaxed than usual, including Mr. Park. He had said yes to the outing without hesitation. No one questioned it. But when he drank more than he intended, it became clear he wasn't used to this pace. As the night ended, the team began helping the more tipsy colleagues into cabs. Arabelle, holding her clutch and finishing her sparkling water, heard someone call her name. "Arabelle? You're taking Mr. Park, right?" She blinked. "I am?" The driver handed her the keys. "He chose you himself, said he trusts you." Her heart jumped in surprise, but she quickly nodded. "Okay, I'll take him." The drive to his apartment was quiet at first. Mr. Park sat in the passenger seat, his eyes half closed, tie loosened, hair slightly messy. The city lights reflected off his window. When they arrived, Arabelle held him out gently. "Come on, we're here." He stumbled slightly as they entered his sleek apartment. Just as she turned to leave, his hand caught her wrist. "Don't go," he mumbled, pulling her back. His eyes were heavy, but his voice was clear. "I tried, Arabelle. I tried to control this feeling, but I'm in love with you." She froze. "I love how your mind works. I love the way you stand tall in a room full of people trying to tear you down. I love everything." And then he kissed her. It was soft, unsure. The kind of kiss that held every emotion he had buried. But Arabelle pulled away, gently but firmly. "You're drunk," she whispered. "You don't want to regret this tomorrow." "I won't," he said, gripping her hand. "I swear I won't." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, casting soft rays over the room. Arabelle blinked, groggy but aware of an unfamiliar warmth enveloping her. She shifted slightly and realized Mr. Park's arms were wrapped around her, holding her close. Her heart skipped. She couldn't remember exactly how they had ended up like this. Had she fallen asleep beside him? She tried to pull away, but his hold only tightened. His voice rumbled softly in the quiet room. "Don't go." Arabelle froze, her breath hitching. She turned her head slowly to meet his gaze. His eyes were clearer now, but they still held the same intensity. "Mr. Park, what happened last night?" He cut her off, his voice a little rough. "It wasn't just the alcohol. I've tried to bury these feelings for a long time. But last night, when I kissed you, I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. I care about you, Arabelle, more than I should." Arabelle's pulse quickened. She had always felt the pull between them, but hearing him admit it left her breathless. She wanted to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "I'm not perfect," he continued, his tone a little more vulnerable now. "I've loved Bora. I've been in love with her, but that was before. You're different. I don't know what's happening, but I can't keep pretending it's nothing." Arabelle's chest tightened, torn between her own feelings and the reality of his past. Still, there was something in his eyes, an honesty she hadn't seen before. "I can't promise this will be easy," he whispered, pulling her closer. "But I want to try with you. Will you be with me, Arabelle?" Her heart pounded, the uncertainty still lingering, but she knew, deep down, that she was already falling for him. "Yes," she whispered back, her voice steady. "I'll be with you." Mr. Park kissed her gently, his lips warm and soft against hers, a promise of what was to come. Which part of the story was your favourite? Was it Arabelle's bold move at the banquet, or the moment Mr. Park finally opened up? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.